Well, you know, the homelessness marathon is kind of high-minded, so I always wish I could say something like an angel of the Lord appeared and commanded me to do it, but it was really just a kind of succession of things that were in and of themselves not maybe that important. I had been on the homelessness beat since 1988. I had written my first article about it. I was working at that time for a travel trade magazine, and I wrote about this looming collision between homelessness and tourism, because I was starting to wonder, what are the tour guides going to say as they're seeing more and more homeless people in the cities where they're taking tour buses and stuff. Well, this turned out to be a major issue, because what started to happen was they didn't have a good answer, so they started just policing the homeless people out of the cities. Then in 1992, I started my radio show, The Nobody Show, and I called myself Nobody because I was speaking kind of about life from the perspective of life's nobodies, which was part of that team. And when the Atlanta Olympics happened, I was getting reports every week from somebody at the Atlanta Catholic Worker House called the Open Door Community, talking about it, and it was an eye-opener. Both in '88 when I wrote about it and in '92 when I was doing it on the radio, I was truly shocked at how homeless people were treated, how they're swept, how their belongings are thrown away, their IDs are thrown away, how their lives are made miserable by municipal authorities, and instead of getting the help that they need. Fast forward to 1998, and I'd been doing the show for a few years, and I always had things that I didn't get to. I always had like clippings or issues or things I wanted to talk about. My show went from 1 hour to 2 hours, and I was never content. And I was on in the evening, and where everything after me was on the satellite, so there was no other local programming. So I said to my station manager, hey, can I just go on one night and talk about all the things I never get to? He said, sure, just throw the switch, put us back on the satellite when you're done. He didn't fully understand that that was a little beyond my technical capacity. When I started, it was kind of like only the most sympathetic people knew why I was doing it. Today, everybody knows why I'm doing it. Today, it's like the world is kind of caught up to where we were. It's like everybody across the country is scared. We're going into this financial crisis. So now, you don't have to really work very hard to tell people maybe we ought to think again about what happens to people when they're poor in this country, because a lot of people are afraid they're about to become poor in addition to the ones who already are. Look, the number one issue for homeless people is just survival, and they are treated unbelievably badly. We're in one of these eras. It's maybe not quite as bad, but you know, when the Indians were still free on the plains, you know, there used to be bounties on them and you could go out and shoot them and get money for it, no questions asked. Well, it's not quite that bad for the homeless, but they're kind of people with no legal protection. The police will beat them up, herd them. The cities will steal their belongings. They'll take their IDs, for instance, and so if you're getting a disability check, you have no way to cash it anymore because you have no more ID. They're under attack. Teenagers assault them. You've heard about these, you know, baseball bat murders of homeless people. They're in danger of freezing to death in the cold weather. And they've got the constant struggle for getting food, for staying warm, for all of these things. That is their first struggle. And then getting out of homelessness itself is another struggle, but it's very hard to do when you're getting knocked down like a bowling pin every time you wake up in the morning, and sometimes when you're asleep. It is very, very, very hard to get out of homelessness. The fundamental problems that drove you into homelessness don't get better when you become homeless, they get worse. So these are the challenges that homeless people face. Plus, on top of that, they face this kind of a program, you know. They don't like it that people walk by them on the street and look at them like they're dirt. You know, people say, well, what can I do to help the homeless? I don't have $1 million. I can't put them all in housing. I can't do this and I can't do that. And I say, look, remember, you can hurt them just by looking at them like they're nothing. If you smile at them, you've already done something. If you're going to give a homeless person a quarter or a dollar, if you say to him, how are you doing today? And you treat him like a human being, you've done something for a homeless person. And don't ever underestimate what that means, because we all do have the capacity to do something. It may not be everything we wish we could do, but we can all do something. And the number one thing we've got to do, and the thing that the Homelessness Marathon is trying to do, is we've got to create a new climate about it. We've got to look at this not as bad people who shouldn't be there and what's the matter with them. We've got to look at it as this is something that's wrong with all of us, something that's gone wrong in our country, and that we share in the solution of. So everybody can kind of have a different attitude about it, and that's an important thing.